It was a cold morning in Rivergate. Light rain fell gently over the city, and the streets were full of people. Children wore bright coats and laughed as they waited for the autumn parade to begin. Among them stood the Harper family, Emma, James, and their daughter, Lily. Lily was almost 3 years old. She sat on her father's shoulders and looked around with wide eyes. Her cheeks were red, her coat was white, and her pink hat covered her soft brown hair. She was very excited. She looked up and said, "Look, balloons! I want one." James smiled and held her legs tightly. He looked at his wife and said, "She never gets tired of balloons, does she?" Emma laughed. She loves everything today. The rain, the music, the people. Everything. The crowd started to cheer as a large float passed by. Loud music played. A big balloon shaped like a smiling sun floated over the street. Suddenly, Lily pointed to something in the sky. A white balloon was flying between the tall buildings. She turned her head quickly. "Mummy, I want a white one." Emma followed her daughter's finger. A woman dressed in a colorful costume was giving out balloons at the corner. The woman looked like a fairy tale nanny, friendly, sweet, and happy. Emma turned to James and said, "Let's get her a balloon. She will not stop thinking about it." But James looked at the parade and hesitated. "Santa is coming. If we go now, we'll miss him." Emma looked back at Lily. She was already reaching her arms toward the corner. They both knew the answer. James said, "All right, little one, let's get that balloon." He carried Lily through the crowd. People were moving everywhere, and it was hard to walk. When they finally reached the balloon lady, he carefully put Lily on the ground. He said, "Go on, ask her yourself." Lily smiled and ran the last few steps. The woman gave her a white balloon with a kind voice. She said, "Do you like sugar, little one?" Lily laughed. It was the last time James heard her laugh. Confetti filled the air. Music grew louder. People clapped and danced. Someone pushed James from behind. He stumbled, trying not to fall. When he looked back, Lily was gone. At first, he thought she was just behind the balloon lady, or maybe she was just hidden by someone tall. But after 10 seconds, 21 minutes, there was still no sign of her. He ran back toward the crowd. His voice was shaking. He shouted her name again and again. "Lily! Lily!" Emma saw James running toward her alone. She didn't understand at first, but then she saw his face. She asked, "Where is she? Where is Lily?" James tried to speak, but the words didn't come. He only whispered, "She's gone." Emma dropped her umbrella. The rain touched her face, but she didn't care. Her body froze. Then she started shouting too. "Lily! Lily, where are you?" Some people turned to help. Others looked around, confused. A man said, "Maybe she's just hiding." But Emma was already crying. James took out his phone and called the police. His hands were shaking. His voice cracked. A few minutes later, officers arrived. One of them spoke in a calm voice. "Tell us what happened. Start from the beginning." James answered everything. Lily's age, her white coat, her pink hat, the exact moment she let go of his hand. The officer asked, "Did anyone see her walk away?" James shook his head. "No. She was just gone." The rain was still falling. Emma was now sitting on the wet ground, holding Lily's small backpack. She looked lost. The officer tried to comfort her. He said, "Don't worry, we will find her." But she looked at him and asked, "Are you sure?" He answered, "Yes. We have officers everywhere. She can't go far." But even then, Emma knew something was wrong. She looked at James and said, "She doesn't go with strangers. She's scared of them." James nodded. He said, "She would never leave without us." The search lasted for hours. Police walked through the streets. They asked everyone. They checked cameras, but the crowd was too big, too fast. One woman said she saw a man walking away with a child, but she wasn't sure. Another said she saw a white balloon flying down a side street. Nobody could agree. The day ended. The streets became quiet. Balloons floated in puddles. Lights turned off. And Lily was still missing. 5 years later, the parade returned to Rivergate. The music played again. People smiled. Children laughed. Balloons danced in the sky. But for James Harper, that day was not a celebration. He returned to the city wearing old clothes and a tired face. His eyes were empty. His beard was long. His voice was weak. He stood near the same corner where Lily had disappeared. He looked at the crowd and shouted, "Watch your children. This city takes what you love." People turned away. A few covered their children's ears. James kept shouting. He said, "Don't trust the music. Don't trust the lights. They cover the truth." A police officer came to him. He asked James to leave. But James was angry. He pushed the officer. The crowd gasped. Other officers ran in. In seconds, they pulled him to the ground and took him away. At the police station, James sat with a cut on his lip and cuffs on his wrists. He didn't speak. But someone was coming for him. Someone who still remembered Lily. Her name was Mira Fields. Mira had been a student on the day Lily disappeared. She saw the little girl's face on the front page of the newspaper. That image stayed in her heart. She said to herself, "I want to find out what happened." And she never stopped. Mira studied journalism. She read every article. She watched every news report. She even talked to people who were there that day. She didn't want money or fame. She wanted answers. Now she worked as a real reporter, and every year she thought about Lily. When she saw James's name in a police report, she knew she had to go. She entered the station and found him sitting alone. He looked up and said only one word, "Sorry." She nodded and helped him out. They sat together in her car. He looked out the window and said, "It's her birthday again. She should be 8 today." Mira didn't say anything at first. Then she said, "I still believe she's out there." James turned to her. "You do?" "Yes," she said. "I believe it every day." That night, Mira sat at her desk, looking at the same photo of Lily, smiling, small, full of life. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Midnight. Old post office. Back door. Come alone. She read it twice. Then she stood up and got her coat. The city was quiet again. The streets were empty. The rain had stopped. Mira reached the post office and found a small package on the ground. Inside was a photo. A girl about 8 years old, with green eyes and a serious face. She wore a white coat. Tied around the photo was a white balloon string. No note, no name, no message. But Mira knew what it meant. It meant someone knew something. And someone was ready to talk. She whispered, "I will find you." And she meant it. In a city full of noise, there are stories hidden in silence. In a world full of lights, there are shadows that never leave. But even in the darkest night, someone keeps searching. Someone believes. Because hope doesn't end with silence. It begins there.